The real economy is not playing with people, but there are some hiccups and things are happening. Let's take evictions. Right now, around the country, evictions are spiking out of control. And with this, you have people sitting in houses, haven't paid rent in months. But these people are still in these houses. Let's go ahead and talk about that. One of the things, and you can find it, you can Google it here on YouTube, talking about the Atlanta court proceeding. At the moment, the sheriffs and deputies are behind 2,600 properties trying to get people out of these houses who have not paid their rent. Now, what's happening is in Atlanta, there's certain days that the attorneys show up for the eviction process. It's 2 days. And one of the things is, at the moment, you have a ton of Georgia landlords who have gone to court, who have won an eviction, and they've been waiting months for these people to be evicted out. And this is something else that gets me. And let's go ahead and talk about this. You're living in someone's house. You know you haven't paid rent, and you're making no effort to get out of that house. It brings up what happened to me in the car rental business when people would have my cars and they wouldn't pay, and I would contact them, they wouldn't answer. They knew they had my car. They knew they weren't paying, but they refused to bring the car back. And this is one of the things that's happening with these people who are living in these houses, that they know that they're not paying the rent. And what we're going to see is an explosion of this behavior. We're going to see people who are going to sign a lease, get in a house, and instantly, they're not even going to wait. They're going to, after paying the security deposit and the first month's rent, they will never pay rent there again. Why? Because this is the real economy. Because as this information gets out and people realize, hey, I can rent a house and I can stay there 6 months rent free. And once again, this whole thing, the economy is getting real and it's not playing with people. And this brings up the CPN. What people are going to do is create a false identity to rent this place. They will never rent this place in their real name or their real identity, because they got to keep that to rent something else in the future. So what they would do is get a CPN, go ahead and through that whole process, and then set themselves up to rent a place, and they'll be in that place 6 months, maybe 7, and then they'll go ahead, do another CPN, rent another place, and do the whole thing, and only pay rent 4 months out of a whole year. And they'll be just stacking their money, because the real economy, this is where crime is going to get stupid. You're going to see financial crimes, you're going to see bank scams, you're going to see all types of stuff. And what's going to happen with this eviction process is people are going to figure out a way to hack the system. I want you to think, if you know that you can go out and get a CPN, create a false identity, then rent this spot, because essentially one of the things I do is I watch a lot of videos about CPNs, because it's a big thing. Credit profile number, whatever. Now, one of the things that happens is when you rent, they do not hit your Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian report like a direct thing. They go to one of the secondary bureaus. And this is really important, because once you understand how they get your information, it makes it really easy for you to defeat these tactics that they have. And this is right now. The sheriffs and deputies are 2,600 properties behind. Now, my understanding of what happens with an eviction, because back in the day, these apartment communities did not care. They would just throw your stuff out the apartment and put it on the front lawn. And then one of the things that started to happen, I think they still do that. I still think they just throw your stuff out on the streets. But one of the things I saw was two sheriffs would show up and they will show up with 3 movers and a moving truck, and they will move all the stuff in this truck and they will put it in storage. I'm not 100% sure about that, but this whole process of evicting people is going to reach it's already reached a critical mass. You can go here and look for ANF, Atlanta News First. It's here on YouTube. This landlord has filed an eviction. He's won this eviction, and he's been waiting 4 months, going on 5 months, to get these people out of his property. Now, here's the thing. He still got to pay the mortgage on that property. He still got to pay the property insurance. He still have to pay the real estate taxes. So he's still paying all this money, even though he's not getting any money. And I feel that to some point with the car rental business, because fortunately for me, I paid cash for all those cars. So I didn't have this ongoing cost, but it still was a cost, because one of the things that happened with these demo renters was they damaged the cars. I had cars completely wrecked. I had cars that were partially wrecked, and I had cars that had minimum damage. And this greatly depreciated the price of this car. And with this whole racket of people going out and renting houses with CPNs, because if you go to YouTube and put CPN, you're going to see a ton of videos. And one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to have people who are going to be using CPNs and stuff to get ahead of the eviction process. They're going to rent a property, and they know that after they get in, they're never going to pay again, and they will be evicted, and it's going to take 4 to 6 months. And that 4 to 6 months, what they'll be doing is saving their money and just going ahead, creating another CPN to get into another property. Because here's the thing, and this is how the game works, because one of the things that I am seeing is the economy is real. The economy is real, and the real economy is not playing with people. Now, what does that mean? People are starting, and I talked about this, and I'll keep talking about this. People are starting to adapt to the real economy and doing whatever they need to do to survive. And what people are going to start doing is creating, because they know that they're only going to be in there 3-4 months, maybe 6 months if they're really lucky. And then they're just going to go ahead, create another identity, and do it all over again to deal with this economy in this manner. Because when you watch CPN videos, they're not all the same. You've got people who talk about having a basic CPN, and you've got people who talk about these CPN master classes where you actually have 6, 7, 8, 10 different CPNs, all active, all getting credit. This one guy, he broke it down, and this guy is not stupid. He said, if you go out and get yourself 10 CPNs, right? 10 CPNs, and you get your public records, and you get $10,000 credit card from each CPN. That's $100,000 cash that you don't have to pay back, that will give you money to start your business. And I was just sitting here like, the CPN thing is deep. It's really, really deep. Now, the CPN thing doesn't work if the bank pulls from Experian, because Experian verifies your social security number. But it still works with TransUnion. It still works with Equifax. And as the economy gets more and more real, you're going to see more and more stuff like this. You're going to see all types of things that are about to go down in this real economy that literally could be on the border of mind-boggling. Because this whole thing with evictions, and then the evictions, that's just the beginning before we get to foreclosures. And that whole process, once again, right now we're having a ton of evictions. And in the future, the foreclosure rate's going to go up. And guess what's going to happen? The same thing that's happening with evictions is going to be the same thing that's going to happen with the foreclosures. These people will be foreclosed. The bank will go to the courts, get a foreclosure notice, and these people will be in their house 6 months to a year not paying mortgage. Now, here's where things get a little dicey. Depending upon who you have in that property, If you have a demo person in that property, let me explain to you what's going to happen. And this is going to happen to the people who are evicting folks. They're going to finally get the people out. They're going to get in the house. They're going to find holes in the wall. They're going to find the bathroom destroyed. They're going to find all types of damage. And this is going to be the same thing for evictions. This is going to be the same thing for foreclosures. The houses will be destroyed. So the owner of that house will have to bear the cost of having this person in their house many months, not paying any money. They're going to have to bear the cost of getting them out. They're going to have to bear the cost of fixing the property. And they got to bear the cost of paying the mortgage, paying the taxes, and paying the insurance. And this is one of the things you're going to see, because right now, being a small landlord owning 1 to 3 houses, it can be a very dicey situation if you get bad renters. Because essentially, many of these small landlords, they don't have a lot of money, and having a house in their name, because essentially this is what's going to happen. Someone's going to buy a house, they're going to get a mortgage, they're going to put a renter in there, they're going to get a bad renter. And what's going to happen is this person is going to get this house foreclosed on. Now, this is where it's going to get dicey. The house gets foreclosed on, but you've got a renter in there. Now, this is really strange, because let's say your house gets foreclosed on and you're still going through the eviction process. Your eviction process hasn't went through the court. Guess what? Even though that house has been foreclosed on, they can't get that person out of the house until the eviction process. Let me go ahead and speak on this clearly, because once the house is foreclosed on, then the bank becomes the owner. And then the bank's got to go to court to get these people out, to get them evicted. I know it sounds strange. I know it sounds crazy. But this is the things we're going to see in 2024. We're going to see people living rent-free for months to a year due to this crisis that's going to happen with evictions, and this crisis that's going to happen with foreclosures. Now, I don't think that we're going to have 10 million foreclosures like we did in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I don't think we're going to have 10 million. But once again, when you take the evictions and add them up with the foreclosures, we could be at 10 to 12 million families being evicted and foreclosed, put them together. I think we could get to about maybe 4 million foreclosures, because they're doing a better job of qualifying these people. But the evictions are going to be stupid. The evictions are going to be beyond ridiculous. The evictions are going to be crazy as we move forward in the country and as we put this stuff out there. The evictions are going to be, the numbers are just, they're stacking up. They're stacking up. And this is just October. We haven't gotten to November. We haven't gotten to December. We haven't gotten to January. Once again, we're still in the beginning stages of this. And the numbers are already crazy. And as the economy gets worse and worse, and once again, I feel we're going to have probably 2 more interest rates increase. I could be wrong, but I feel we're going to have 2 more, one in November, one in December. And this is going to be the thing that's going to be pushing people to the edge. And it's going to be crazy. And I will say this, if you want to be investing in real estate and you do not have substantial capital, it could be a really dangerous move. Like, you just barely get the house, you barely get the mortgage, and you put this bad renter in here, and this bad renter goes really crazy on you. This could be the beginning of your bankruptcy. Or you could just have a foreclosure on your credit report, which I do believe, I don't know how long foreclosures stay on your credit report. Maybe 7 years, maybe 10 years. I would say 7, because if you just have that foreclosure where the bank takes the house back, that's going to stay on your credit report for 7 years. And that's going to be really difficult to remove. So for 7 years, you cannot buy another house. You'll be able to get a car, you'll be able to get credit cards, but you can get this high interest stuff. But your life can be financially destroyed by one bad renter if you just barely get into this real estate thing. I have a friend who's in real estate. She owns 25 houses. Out those 25, 21 or 22 are completely paid for. And she's had some problems with people that she's had to evict. But fortunately for her, she doesn't have these carrying costs because her real estate business is not heavily leveraged. You know, she would put it herself because, you know, she talks to a lot of other real estate people, and she would say that she's the most solvent out of all the real estate investors because she would say that 75% of her portfolio is paid off. And she was telling me the story. She had a family in one of her houses that she had to evict, and it took between the filing the paperwork and actually getting them out, it took 6 months. And then the house was in very poor shape. So she had that 6 months, then she had to put $10,000 into repairing the house and fixing things that this family had damaged. And she's like, she considered herself to be lucky because number one, she had the $10,000 and she had the other houses still making her money. So she wasn't in that position of being the upside down landlord, which is what's happening to a lot of these people who barely get into real estate and barely get the mortgage. Because like I said, I left a comment that if you want to be a real estate investor, you're going to need 10 to 15 properties for it to really make sense. 1, 2, or 3, and they're not, and let's say cash flow. And let's say you're making like $200 or $300 a month net profit per rental, and then you got to pay property taxes. You're not making any money. You just, once again, you have leveraged your credit. And in time, you could be making money because as the rents go up and the property gets more expensive, you can flip them. But in the beginning 5, 7 years, you're not making a lot of money. And this is one of the things that gets me with all these people who want to get into real estate without understanding the numbers of real estate and understanding the things. Because like I said, I went ahead, did some research, and this is supposed to be the winter of real estate. The summer months, I think the month from May to August is supposed to be hot. I am seeing more and more properties come on the market. I am seeing more and more rentals. So as the real economy really shows itself, and like I said, the real economy, this is the economy without the $6 trillion government stimulus. What you're seeing is what's happening. What you're getting is what's real. And it's not messing with people. It's not playing with people. And this housing thing is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It is just going to get much worse as we go forward, doing these things and building out our businesses as well as people build out their businesses. And this is why being well capitalized, being in a position where you are really above water, it's going to be very important. It's going to be extremely important because once again, this whole thing of doing stuff and getting in the business without being well capitalized and not being in a good position is something that could cost you dearly. It could cost you dearly. And this is one of the reasons that I kind of pulled back from real estate, because just looking at the numbers, I didn't like the numbers. I just didn't like the numbers, but that's just me. But one of the things that's going to happen as we go through this real estate crisis, and it's going to be a real estate crisis on the eviction side. And with these evictions, this is going to put pressure on these landlords. And these landlords, many of these landlords are going to get foreclosed on because they're not going to be able to come up with all that money unless the bank is willing to make some type of deal and to put all those missed mortgage payments at the end of the loan and giving the landlord a break. I don't really see that happening, but it could, because this is going to be a persistent and nasty problem. This is going to go on and on and on and on and on. And this is going to get to be something that we'll see in the news, because it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a huge thing where we have all these people getting evicted, and this leaves the landlords. And because the majority of landlords in America, if you didn't know it, are not corporate landlords. The majority of landlords are people like you and your neighbors who own 1, 2, maybe 3 properties. That's the majority of landlords in the United States of America. And this is going to be a direct physical assault on these people when you have all these folks who are going to not pay rent, it's going to be really, really rough.